Right. Hi everyone. I'm Dr. Thomas Haney. I'm your module coordinator for this particular module, and I decided that I would try something a little bit new. I've sent myself the slides and I'm sharing them to my big screen in my living room because I'm quite an animated person when I lecture. This is a bit of an adjustment for me as well, so gives me the sort of freedom to move about. If you don't like this particular sort of method, so I'm making the slides available on Aula, or however you pronounce it, Aula. So you can have the bare slides and you can follow through these slides or follow them as we go along. And I can also sort of speak and point to the slides as well, instead of just doing a sort of recording in PowerPoint. Okay, so welcome to Intro to Games Development. Notice it's intro and not introduction. And that's the Joker from Mortal Kombat 11. And as you can see, I'm going with a Superman motif, which we're just about to sort of slightly change just now. I was in Marks and Spencer's there, and the lady said to me, "Are you going with a sort of Superman thing?" I said, "Fine with you, someone noticed." But anyway, it's just so I can point to the slides. Oh, more Superman. And that's the way we're going to slightly do it. It's an adjustment for myself as well. Having to sort of do this. Normally I would just come into a room and talk my way through the slides anyway. So, Intro to Games Development, there's the Joker there. And it's an overview / introduction to the module. So I'm going to be telling you exactly how the module is sort of formulated, albeit online this year, and what particular lectures to expect. And I'll propose 2 options for assessment that you can then give me your feedback on. Okay, so the module code is comp07028. I don't know if you can actually see that, but it's the next slide. It's called Intro to Games Development. On this particular slide, you've got my email address. You've also got my mobile number, which is 077126735509. That's in case there's any form of difficulty, any form of problem whatsoever. Give me a call if you want. Preferably between the hours of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And there's my LinkedIn profile is on this as well, so feel free to connect with me on that. I would heartily recommend it. And also I've got a Discord username there as well, so you can contact me on that if you so desire. So you can follow these slides as we sort of go along as well. As I say, if you don't like this method of delivery, we can just go straight back to PowerPoint and I can record over them as well. But this way, you kind of get to see me, and I kind of get to move as well. So that's good, instead of just sitting there. I don't really like a sedentary lifestyle. I look like that, there's no getting away from it, unfortunately. Although, I think I'm a bit thinner. I think I've come down out of lockdown winning. Okay, so labs this year. These will obviously be at home this year. In the first instance, I'm going to ask you to have a little look at GameMaker 8.1 Lite to see if we can all get it working. I realise this is a mixture of animation, computer animation arts students and computer games development students. So do try to have a little look at this application. I'll give you a link in Aula tomorrow, because this is Sunday, and we'll start tomorrow on Monday, but I'm pre-recording. I've just had a lot of honey. So I'm incredibly hyper, so I thought just go for it just now instead of tomorrow morning. Okay, so I'll make a link to GameMaker 8.1 Lite available. There's also a link on the slide, so you can follow that as well, and you can hopefully download that and have a little look at it. Now, the coursework, we've been told to be very creative with coursework this time because of COVID-19. Now, in terms of coursework, we may switch game engines, but this is a very, very simple games engine, and it's free, and I don't think it's too resource intensive, so it doesn't eat up your resources at home or anything like that, because that's something we'll need to sort of figure out through the Aula system, you know, what sort of equipment people actually do have at home and what they can actually do and what assessment will in fact be acceptable. So have a little look at that if you can. So in terms of an activity, for a sort of ice-breaking activity on the Aula system, and normally I would do this in the class as well, and it's really rather fun, and it takes up quite a bit of time. The activity is tell us your name, what your degree stream is, so it's either going to be computer animation arts or computer games development, Why you want to be a games developer, it says there on the slides, but I suppose you could change that to be an animator as well, or anything that you want to be. Where do you want to be in 4 years' time? Name your favourite Marvel DC character, favourite Star Wars character, favourite Lord of the Rings character, something like that. I'd assume that we're all relatively, into that sort of stuff. Favourite video game and favourite video game character as well. So we can do that in the other system, and it's a nice way to get to know people. I think you can put videos and things on there, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's nice to do that sort of thing. So I'll go first. I'm Thomas Haney. You can call me Tommy, Tom, or Thomas. My degree stream, I'm the program leader of computer games development. Why do I want to be a games developer? I never really wanted to be a games developer. I only wanted to be an academic and work in academia. Where do you want to be in 4 years' time? Preferably dead. No, possibly senior lecturer. Still doing my job because I do love my job. Possibly settled down with a nice little house, middle class, with a dog. Yes, why not? Name my favourite Marvel DC character. Well, I'll sort of do that just now. So, Magneto is one of my favourite characters from the X-Men universe. Absolutely love Superman as well, because basically he's just all of these people combined, more or less, apart from telekinesis and magnetism and all that sort of thing. Emperor Palpatine is my favourite from Star Wars. Yes, do what must be done, Lord Vader. Do not hesitate to show no mercy. Absolute favourite, brilliant. Let's see, Sauron. As you can probably tell, I like all the bad guys generally from Lord of the Rings. He's my absolute favourite. This is one of my favourite video games, Lego Marvel Superheroes, in the PlayStation 4, which you can probably see down there. Absolutely love that. Zelda games, totally love Zelda games. My favourite is probably the Ocarina of Time in the Nintendo 64. Brilliant game, that. Street Fighter, probably one of my favourite games as well. When I was younger, it was like 1992, I believe, and it was Street Fighter 2. It just came out on the Super Nintendo, I think, and that's where my love of Street Fighter sort of started. But of course, I love M. Bison because he's absolutely brilliant. Okay. Love Scorpion as well in the Mortal Kombat fighting games. He's my absolute favourite. And I've got a passion for Mario games. Absolutely love Super Mario games. Shigeru Miyamoto is a god of games development, as he always has been. At the moment, my favourite games are Super Mario Odyssey, Zelda, Link's Awakening, and you can see a small comparison there on the slides. I had Zelda Link's Awakening on the Game Boy in 1993, 27 years ago, and then I got it for the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch Lite just recently at Christmas there, and I did exactly the same. I woke the Windfish 27 years ago, and I woke him again now, so well into my Zelda games. I've got, they're all here, Super Mario 3D All-Stars. So that combines Super Mario 64 from the Nintendo 64 all those years ago, I believe it was 1996 perhaps, and then Super Mario Sunshine on the Nintendo GameCube, and then of course Super Mario Galaxy. I think that was in the Nintendo Wii. My Nintendo Wii is over there. My Nintendo GameCube I in fact pawned because I only had one game for it, but oh well, there we go. So absolutely love those games as well. Let's see. Zelda Breath of the Wild, kind of love that game, but because I'm old, and I will confess this to you now, I actually picked up the axe in Zelda Breath of the Wild, and because it's slightly different, I was near an expanse of water, and I said I will just try this axe, and I threw the axe into the expanse of water and thought, oh damn, I need that. And then I went in swimming to try and retrieve said axe, and I drowned. So that kind of goes to show that I'm not quite used to these sort of modern games, and games have sort of changed over the ages, or the decades certainly. And in some games you couldn't drown. I mean, in Super Mario 64, I think you just sort of ran out of air, floated to the surface, and you were fine, you know. But anyway, not brilliant at that game, but I'm trying to get into it. One game that I really going to want to get into, and I've promised a child that I will, is Fortnite, so I'm going to get into that at some stage, because he won't take no for an answer. So, Course structure, those are some of my favourite games, so you get to know a little bit about myself and my particular tastes and the fact that I like the evil characters. Yes. So, course structure, there's going to be 12 lectures. It's probably going to be about 1 to 2 hours. I will pre-record the lectures and then I will put them on the Aula system for you to watch in your own time. So delivery of these lectures is going to be asynchronous. So because it doesn't appear on the timetable, don't panic, okay? And that's going to be either 1 or 2 hours. I generally don't prattle on past an hour, to be perfectly honest, unless the subject interests me. So work at home for you guys will entail, I'll make sure that I have a lecture generally by 10 o'clock for you to watch on a Monday, every Monday, until the end of the trimester, or term as they call it. So work for you guys will involve watching the lectures, trying the practical labs. We'll see how we get on with the practical stuff. We don't necessarily have to go down that route if it's going to be too problematic for some people. I realise that some people are working at home and it might be a difficulty, but they are quite fun, so we should try them and we shouldn't rule out the possibility. What I don't want to do this trimester, even with first years, is get entirely lazy and say, because of COVID-19, we're going to make everything Microsoft Word based and just do documentational stuff. It's just, it's kind of okay to do that, but I feel it's lazy and it's robbing you of the experience. So if you try these things, because you're all just sitting at home anyway, pretty much like myself. Okay, so trying the practical labs, producing a design document as well, developing a small prototype or proof of concept, possibly we'll do that. That can be part of the assessment. I'm going to present 2 options for assessment, so tell me what you think. And producing a small 5-minute showreel of your game idea slash prototype. Now I've got a number of suggestions for this. I was asking the 4th year games development students yesterday what particular screen capturing software they use. Presumably you guys will be pretty up on this, but anyway, you're wanting it to capture the screen well and of course be free. So let's see. This is the course structure, so today is going to be a sort of introduction, coursework brief. I'll say that that's a proposal to the coursework. In terms of self-study, you can install GameMaker 8.1 Lite and attempt to familiarise yourself with that. Next week we're going to be looking at the games design document, so that's going to be a pretty lengthy lecture. Regardless of what happens, that is going to be a major part of the coursework in this particular module, so we'll do an entire lecture on it and we'll make sure that everyone sort of knows what goes into a games design document. There is no sort of typical format in the industry for it, so we will look at what people have more or less compiled together and formulate a sort of synthesis. I have a sort of template for it, and that's fine. Then the week after that, the 19th of October, I believe, is going to be computer games and basic animation terminology, so we'll go through that. Epistemological frames. If you're going to be a professional in anything, then you've got to actually start, speaking in the lingo or the vernacular, and using the particular terminology of that particular profession in order to be taken seriously, and also so that you're understood by the rest of the population, of the professionals. So for the lab that week, there can be the previous week to that will be possibly complete a clown lab, and then after that there's a sort of shooter, scrolling shooter game that you can sort of complete. These are on YouTube, all the resources are there, they're quite easy to follow. I like it that way because it is sort of video based at this time, and trying to interpret instructions from afar is going to be quite difficult, particularly textual instructions, okay? Then we're going to look at what makes a good game. That is one of my best lectures, I feel. And then for the lab, we'll do complete part 2 of the 1945 game, so that's the sort of scrolling shooter. We'll also look at game mechanics, that's going to be in the 2nd of November. We may have a consolidation week. We normally have a consolidation week in terms of UWS, where students are allowed to consolidate, read their knowledge, and more or less take a little break. And that's it. And sometimes that is sort of important. We can have that, we don't necessarily have to have that. I will leave it entirely up to you guys, and we'll do a sort of poll. So your feedback is important on that. Next week after that, we're going to do the psychology of play. So I have lectures and all these things, and we're looking at why people play computer games, what makes them intrinsically motivating, entertaining, why play is important, particularly for children. So we'll look at that. Then we're going to look at computer games history. Computer games history is relatively interesting, although the history lectures don't tend to be the most popular lectures. However, it does date back to the 1940s up until the present. So we have a sort of three-part series of that. So computer games history part 1, probably going from the 40s to the 60s. And you know that they're nearly getting to the stage where they're 100 years old. And computer games history part 2, where we're probably looking at the 60s to the 80s, and then part 3, where it's more or less the sort of 80s up until the present. And a lot has happened because of the advancement of computer games technology. Everything is happening sort of at an exponential rate now. I've probably used that terminology wrong, exponential, but you know what I mean. More things are coming out, more consoles, etc. The PlayStation 5 is going to be out relatively soon, and then you know, it's just flying away, and trying to do a sort of comprehensive overview of all of that is quite difficult. However, we'll do our best. Then I'll look at software development lifecycle methodologies, focusing on heavy methodologies, and then the lighter methodologies, going into the agile methodologies, and games development lifecycle methodologies as well. I mean, you've probably heard all of this from my little sort of welcoming video. And then we'll possibly look at games engines by, what I mean by that is sort of comparing Unreal, Unity, and GameMaker, and possibly other ones as well. So that's kind of what I've got sort of planned lecture-wise. In terms of lab-wise and assessment-wise, we shall play it by ear. I may add in some lectures on the following. I've always wanted to do one in story, narratology, ludology. There seems to be a sort of never-ending battle between those two particular terms of schools of thought. Serious games, games for education and training. My research area is primarily serious games, so I know a fair bit about it, or about them. So we could possibly add in something like that. And we could also explore things like gameplay and playability, but we shall see. Okay, so for the practical sessions, we're going to be trying to use GameMaker 8.1 Lite. And I quite like this because it's relatively easy to get a game and everything put together. For animation students, I mean, it's not entirely necessary to do programming in this course. It's been my experience in the past that computer animation art students prefer to draw and things like that, and produce their portfolio that way. A very impressive one year in a scroll, which looked as if it was from Middle Earth. So it really depends. But also they're very, very good at sort of creating their own characters as well. So you may wish to develop a game, you may not. The computer games development people, I would suggest that because you're going to be making a career in this, if you can't produce a game in GameMaker 8.1 Lite, then you're not going to be able to produce a game in more complex engines like Unity or Unreal. So I would suggest that you definitely go for that. So let's see. We've got GameMaker, that's the download link, so that will definitely take you to that, and you'll be able to download it for free and try it out, and it's relatively okay. There is GameMaker 1, I believe, in GameMaker 2. I'm not sure what versions there are now, but the GameMaker 8.1 Lite is not supported by Yo-Yo Games anymore. So it's not really compatible with later versions of GameMaker. You may choose to actually buy later versions of GameMaker and use that as well. I will not stop you doing that. Go and buy game engines to your heart's content. Use whatever you want to produce a game in this module if you want to go for that particular option. Okay. Right, all of the resources, it says on Moodle, but it's actually going to be an Aula this year. I should alter that before I put it up. It's all going to be made available to you. If I have problems with this new Aula system, then I will email you the resources anyway. So I'm afraid you'll just have to be a bit patient with me. I have 2 level 7 modules, and I've had to try and convert most of my material to this new VLE that the university has purchased. But, you know, we'll work it out. We will work it out. It's absolutely fine. So there's a Catch the Clown game, scrolling shooter. These are all the sort of YouTube videos that you need to watch. There's a sort of maze game as well that you might want to develop. It depends what particular genre of game you want to develop at the end of the day. And there's platforms as well. The tutorials were developed by Mark Overmars, who is a Dutch scientist who created Game Maker, I believe. Now, the tutorials within the resources, the first one's kind of slightly acceptable in terms of readability, but then after we get up to we start in the scrolling shooter one, and then we start in the maze one, he expects you to sort of know things immediately, and what sort of happens is the tutorials become a little bit more sloppy, unfortunately, and it's not a how-to guide anymore, it just sort of gives you pointers. So there are the links there for that purpose to make it easy for you working at home. Okay. There are also a few books on Game Maker as well, the Game Maker's Apprentice being one of them, so you may wish to purchase that, or if you get access to the library or whatever. The main thing about programming books is that you actually get the coding resources with them and the assets, so it's not really any good, no good just going onto the internet and downloading the PDF for free and going, oh, I have it all now, but you don't have the graphics. And you don't have everything to sort of make it work, unfortunately. So, lecture 4 that I'm going to be delivering is actually based on a small paper written by Mark Overmars about what makes a good game. So instead of you having to actually read that, but I will give it to you this time to read because, as I say, you're doing very little else. But I've also done a presentation or a PowerPoint slide, basically taking the best parts of it and summarising it to you. Okay. So there's a Catch the Clown game. You can do that round about week 3, and this is easy as pie. At least I think it is. And essentially, it's just a little sort of clown thing here. Yes, and then all you have to do is implement that and catch the little clown. I don't know if you can see it there, but it's sort of changing to Pennywise. You want it, don't you, Georgie? Hi, Georgie. Yes. What a nice boat. Do you want it back? Yeah, I've got quite a fan as well, so I've got Pennywise the Clown there. Anyway, I've also got... there he is there. Ah, yes. And essentially, if you were doing this in a big sort of lecture hall, then it would possibly frighten people with chlorophobia, or chlorophobia, or whatever you call it. The fear of clowns, yes. But anyway, you can do sort of permutations of that, try to make it better or worse or whatever. Then week 4, week 5, you could possibly look at the 1945, which is a little sort of scrolling shooter game as well. It'll take 2 weeks to do that, and it's not the easiest. The resources does have examples of the already sort of implemented games, so that's good to go back and look at that. Game Maker is very, very much, well, it's an engine, so it's drag and drop, but also there's little things like checkboxes and radio buttons and things in it, and buttons and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes you can find that something may not be working as a result of you not checking a particular box, and we don't want that. So that's where attention to detail actually comes in, and that's why I missed the labs this year. We won't be able to do them. It's a shame, because every single year someone always says to me, right, I've got a problem with this, it's not working, and it's exactly the same as what they've done. And I always say, I bet I can find a difference. You bet me a fiver that I can find a difference. I don't take any of their money because I quite clearly don't need it, but I can always find some form of little tiny difference, and that's what being a programmer, a game developer is really about. Retentive attention to detail, and you've no idea how many times that actually saves you in life. Okay. There's also a kind of maze game as well that you can possibly develop. Now, this is the easiest version, or the easiest genre, I would say, to actually implement if you're wanting to go down the implementational route. Okay, so it's a maze game, yes. And then there's a platform game with all the sort of resources that are blatantly ripped off from Super Mario Brothers 2 on the, is it the Super Nintendo? Yeah, okay. So week 3, we should have everything we need to sort of start on the games design document. So basically, think of a game. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything particularly original, or it can be original. It just really depends on what sort of floats your boat. And sometimes you do have sort of really sort of out there ideas, and it's absolutely brilliant to see. We've had brilliant submissions to this course in the past. So it's always good to never ever say that your idea is bad. Just sort of put it down on paper and see what you get. As I say, it doesn't necessarily have to be particularly original, but it's always nice when it sort of is. Okay, so you can begin working a game. So think of an idea for a game. What kind of game that you've always wanted to see? To be perfectly honest, I have always wanted to see a Halloween game, and some of the students have actually implemented Halloween games for me, where Michael Myers is going around killing the babysitters. I absolutely love it. And we've had a Friday the 13th. I'm obviously very well into my horror movies, so very much into my horror movies. So they've in fact implemented these things for me before, because obviously you can't have that, you know. Going around killing babysitters and knifing people. It's not acceptable, apparently. Give it time. Okay, this isn't really about attendance. This is about engagement. So it does say attendance here, but really there's no attendance this year. There can't be for this module. I don't think we're supposed to be working remotely and from afar when we can, and we can in this module. So engagement with assessment is compulsory. So basically, as long as you're doing the assessment, that's absolutely fine. I'll try and keep track of you all on the Aula system and make sure that you're all okay and everything like that. We'll try little hints of things that give some form of indication of engagement, possibly like quizzes or something like that regarding the lectures perhaps, and we shall see. So really, it's all about the attendance or the engagement indicators are all about you submitting an assessment this time. So you've got to submit an assessment. So failure to submit assessments will result in you having to reset or re-attend the module. Now this is the easiest module that the university has ever had to offer, or at least the easiest module in computer games development, probably the easiest module in computer animation art. That's why it's called Intro to Games Development. Now, if you fail this, it is not a good indicator. And we haven't had a lot of failures in the past. People that have just decided not to submit anything or decided it's not for them or whatever. But the main thing to remember is that for computer animation arts, this is an optional module. Now, when you're at level 7, in order to get a degree, you need 120 credits at each level. And when you're at level 7, you can carry an optional module into year 2, but you always have to pick it up, and you always have to make that credit deficit disappear. Okay, so for computer animation art, you're not wanting to be entering the next year with a credit deficit of any kind. Okay, so computer games development is in fact a core module for computer games development. So if you fail it, then you'll be stopped from going into the second year. So you don't want to do that. So essentially, this is all about just planning. So if you have to reset, it becomes a pain, and if you have to re-attend something like this, it also becomes a pain, because you can't re-attend it until the next time the module is run, and you have to look at my smiling face again, and you don't want that. You don't want that. You just want to, get it over with, and it'll be fine. And it's a pretty awesome module anyway. So assessments. I am proposing 2 options for assessment this time. Now I want to hear what your feedback is on this. So on the Aula system, or on Discord, or whatever, let me know. We'll maybe put a small poll. We don't have to necessarily set the assessment in stone yet, but we'll maybe put a small poll to see exactly what people sort of want. Or you can actually pick from the option and tell me what the option is that you're actually going for. So let's say a large games design document, which is about 90%, doesn't require any sort of programming, perhaps. And then a showreel pitch idea, where you're actually pitching the plan or the game, or possibly computer animation arts. People are great at sort of making videos and things like that, so you might want to do something like that. I will not restrict you, okay? It can be done in a group of two, preferably with a mixture of students. I would quite like, but if you can't find a mixture or you're wanting to work individually, that's equally fine. If you're going to go for this large games design document thing, then it has to be quite a substantial games design document, so maybe about 2,000 words, I would say. Okay, so that's one option. Option two is doing a sort of games design document. Now, at this stage, worth 40%, so it's smaller. Submitted in week 8, worth about 40%, yes, I've said that. Feedback and marks will be provided within 2 weeks, and that goes for all assessments, really. But if you submit a draft of that, regardless of what option you go for, then I'll be able to give you some form of formative feedback on that before you actually submit the full thing. Okay. The game itself, you can actually do a game in Game Maker 8.1 Lite or Game Maker Studio 1.3 or Game Maker Studio 2 or any engine that you prefer. It's absolutely fine, and that would be worth 50% in this particular option. Now, I would expect the computer games development people to do that. That would probably be their best option, because if you can't do a game now in this tiny engine, then you know later on there's going to be complications. Okay, and then a video playthrough as well, or a video walkthrough or whatever, worth 10%. So that's two options for the courseworks. One's a very big games design document if you don't want to, or you don't have access to machines to do the sufficient programming, as if it's a great deal of programming, but never mind, I'm giving the option anyway. So that's 90% worth, and then some form of video, animation, whatever you want to do in order to get that proof of concept over. And then the other option is doing a smaller games design document and then going through the developmental process, actually implementing some form of game, which is more fun, by the way, far more fun. And then a sort of video game walkthrough. Okay, that's something to think about. Let me know. So the game would be submitted in week 13 worth 50%. Also, you can do this in a group of two if you want, although I can't imagine how you're actually going to meet people now with COVID-19, but you can do it individually as well. If you were in fact meeting in the university, then we'd sort of strive for that sort of thing. Or if you've been at college or school before, you might want to work with someone. But obviously, if it's a group of two, you expect twice the sort of production. Essentially, university is all about work, regardless of which way you splice it. So when an academic looks at your particular work, they're looking at it and saying, this is supposed to be about 200 hours worth of student effort hours. And that's really what you're sort of marked on. So it's all about the work ethic, and you thought I was fun. It's all about the work ethic and how much work you actually put into things. So do sort of remember that. So you can do that in groups of two, and that's absolutely fine. We generally don't post marks up in the Aula system or the Moodle system, but I'll get you feedback and I'll tell you what I propose as your mark. I always sort of do, and generally that's okay. The marks can slightly change through moderation and external examination. It's not just up to me. Once the marks are set in stone in the banner system, you're then able to access them. And then if you come back and say, I don't like that mark or whatever, but we should have possibly picked up on things through formative feedback before that stage occurs. And if you come back and say, I'm not really happy with that, you're not just saying, I'm unhappy with your mark, Thomas, you're saying, I'm unhappy with the externals mark, I'm unhappy with the externals approval, I'm unhappy with the moderation, I'm unhappy with your mark as well. So many people have marked it by this point in order to make it equitable. Okay, hand-in dates. Links will be provided on Aula for all submissions of coursework. A games design document draft will be expected regardless of which option you go for on Sunday the 22nd of November at 1900 hours, 7 p.m. I know that Sunday is a weird day, but I actually turned 40 on the Friday. And I'm not looking at student work when I turn 40. I'll be too busy contemplating where I'm going with my life if I wish to go any further. Okay, so assessment game and video, that will be Wednesday, I made a mistake there. It should be Wednesday the 23rd of December at 1900 hours. Now, I don't necessarily want this to affect your Christmas or anything like that. So if you're wanting to hand it in before Christmas, that's fine. Do let me know. We can do another sort of poll or whatever if you're wanting the assessment to be handed in after Christmas. But do bear in mind that it's best to sort of get these things out of the way and enjoy your Christmas, and that's it. Or, I mean, you can wait until sort of January and put things in. Then, regardless of what happens, I'll be marking all the way through the holidays anyway. So let me know what you're wanting to do with that. So that's the sort of proposal again, a proposed time frame. So I shall think of that. So it'd be the 23rd of November. No, say that again. The 23rd of December is when you're wanting the sort of final thing in. Okay. Right, according to university policy, if you submit an assessment up to 1 week late, you're allowed to be, well, you're penalised 10%, or you can be penalised 10%. If you submit later, then it's a zero. Personally, I have never sort of bothered with this sort of thing. As long as you just get it in, I'm fine, because I've got so many other things to do anyway. If I don't really particularly bother with that sort of thing. But it's just to let you know that some other lecturers will. If you're a nanosecond late, they will penalise you 10%, or if you don't submit, after a week, they'll give you a zero, and that'll be that. So bear that in mind. I'd like to think of myself as far cooler than that, unfortunately. But I'm quite happy to take submissions up until a certain point, shall we say, as long as I've got enough time to mark them. Okay. Righto then, video playthrough, you can use screen capture software. I've given a number of examples there. I will probably refresh that list. You get things like Camtasia, and you can also use your mobile phone if you're having difficulties with that sort of thing. Here's some Screencast-O-Matic, iSpring, FreeCam. I'm not sure if they're relevant anymore, to be honest. I should possibly have updated this. I do have another list. I've got the 4th years formulating a list as well, so you can have a look at that and see which ones that you're wanting to actually use. And you can also use your mobile phone as well, as we all sort of do nowadays. Okay. The video playthrough, generally this will be too big to put on Aula or Moodle or the virtual learning environment. Sorry, I should have made sure it was Aula that appeared on these slides, but I got confused. Anyway, probably one of the best ways to get around this is setting up a YouTube account. Upload the link from your phone or your tablet and send the link. It's absolutely fine. That's how I'm going to be doing this lecture. Generally, if the video is about 5 minutes long, then full marks will be given. I'm quite happy to do that. It's just a test. For computer animation arts people, this should be easy. Computer games development people, I find it quite difficult to make videos, but they should sort of get into the swing of it, because I'm the leader of the program, I want everyone to be able to have show reels at the end of it, and I want to be able to promote the course as well. So that's good. It's good for them and it's good for me. So pretty easy. Guidelines for the video playthrough. You can record your voice, draw attention to particular pieces of functionality that you're proud of, possibly things that gave you a bit of hassle, and where you got the graphics, all that sort of thing. Sorry, it's Paisley, and there's the police are outside. Happens all the time. I'm next to the town hall, so the town hall clock is always going, and the cops are always here. But anyway, you can record your voice and talk about your sort of game as a critical appraisal, what you found difficult, what you're proud of, that sort of thing. And it's great when you get people that make their games so difficult that they try to play through it. Even they can't play through it, even though they created it. Had that before. Yeah, it's good. You can describe the assets, point out interesting implementation. Try not to swear too much, although I must confess it is relatively amusing when people do. And it was the last time I heard someone swear in one of these walkthrough videos, it was this guy with a thick German accent, and he was nearly at the end of his game, and he fell off the platform and died. And you can imagine, it was like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So try not to swear. I did have one student who was very unhappy with his mark, and he says, he never gave me a very good mark. for this as well, you were eating all the way through it, and he was, he ate a cookie. It was 45 seconds long, and he ate a cookie the entire way through it. All I could hear was crunch, crunch, crunch. And at the end, I was very annoyed and wanted a cookie, and I didn't have any. So he was very upset with his marks. So try not to do things like that. Okay? So, in terms of assessment deliverables, if you're going for option 1, you're looking for a very big games design document, about 2,000 words, and a video recording, that's quite good, of your game or idea or pitch. And if you go for option 2, then you're looking for 3 deliverables really. So a smaller games design document, about 1,000 words, about half the marks, okay? And a game maker game, or a game in any engine that you desire, that's fine. And a video recording of your game maker game, okay? So in terms of university courses in general, computer games development, animation, particularly programming, it all really boils down to problem solving. Problem solving is a very sort of big business. It's about creativity, time and patience, and not going nuts every single time you're confronted with a problem. And it's a very, very, very big business, and you probably don't know this yet unless you're a mature student coming back to do a course. But the more intelligent you are, the greater the challenge, and the more problems you are faced with, and that's just the way it goes. And intelligence is really a privilege, but you've also got to sort of work hard. What I will say to you is that employers do not like problem people. They prefer problem solvers. They do not like people putting obstacles in their place all the time, saying, well, I can't do this because of this, and I can't access my computer, can't access, all of that sort of thing, where they put every possible conceivable obstacle in front of you. I've lost my file, it's now corrupt. They prefer problem solvers as opposed to people that always present some form of difficulty or obstacle, in my experience. So become one of those people, like myself, just a nodding, yes, no problem, I'll do this, yay, and I'm sure everything will be hunky-dory. So next week, for next week, try to access the Aula system. We'll introduce ourselves, or try to do that, try to do the small sort of ice-breaking task where you introduce yourself and you say, what stream you're from, where you're wanting to be, what your favourite characters are, that sort of thing, favourite movies. Try to follow some of the tutorial guides in the software to complete the basic tutorials. And I'd quite like to know your opinions about the proposed assessment options. So what do you think? Would you prefer to do option 1, or would you prefer to do option 2? And it's entirely up to you. The assessment can in fact be changed. I haven't posted it yet, so let's wait until possibly week 3 or 4 before we sort of make that decision. But I will say that a games design document will be part of the assessment regardless of which particular option you prefer. Now, it may very well be that the majority of the class just wants option 1, or the majority just wants option 2, or perhaps you just get a mixture. Maybe people are just quite happy to specify which particular option they're going for. And that's really to be extra flexible in this time of COVID, these unprecedented times. So that's it. Also, let me know if you enjoyed the delivery of this, actually sort of seeing me, presenting the slides in front of my telly. The lectures, this is just the sort of first overview lecture. They tend to get a bit more interesting after this. And I can also present them in another way. So, I can do PowerPoint and just sort of talk through that as a sort of small image in the side, and talk through slides if you prefer that way. But if you prefer to sort of see me, then let me know. But this is as sort of, playing it by ear, as I'm sure we will have to all do this year. But anyway, it's absolutely brilliant to have you all in the class. I do hope you enjoy it. You will enjoy it. It's a very enjoyable module. I've never had any complaints, to be perfectly honest. And it's going to be fun. And we'll see what particular courseworks we're wanting to do. And sort of let me know. And I'll post this up. I'll post up the slides separately so you can follow them as I sort of speak if you want. Or you can just watch this video. And really there are supposed to be no labs in week 2. So, you can probably just watch this week and more or less your work is done. But then after that, we're going to move on to the game's design document next week. So lots of things to iron out. But if you have any problem whatsoever, you've got my mobile number, you've got my Discord, you've got every possible conceivable method to contact me. So don't be shy to pick up the phone or give me a call. I'm a very approachable, nice man, and everything will be absolutely fine. What I don't necessarily want is a whole load of emails with about 25 questions. I got that from a student the other day there, and I just picked up the phone and said, right, I'm going to answer your questions verbally, one by one, because there's no way I'm spending another 40 minutes of my life, going through every individual question that you've got. So sometimes it's actually better just to speak face to face if we can. We can also do Microsoft Teams meetings, Zoom. We've got all those sort of things available to us, so it's all quite easy. Okay, so I will cease to speak there, and I'll put all of this up, and we'll reconvene next week. Okay.